Okay, so I have this star that I've made. It's an 8-point star. I've gotten it pressed with some starch just so that it's nice and flat. And this is the interfacing I've been using, and I've liked it. I think there's a couple of different interfacing options you could use, but this one has worked well for me. Since I've used some of it, I'm going to have to kind of piece it together a little bit so that I don't, have waste. So let me show you how I use this. Okay, this is my method. It's not necessarily the right method or the only way to do this. But I'm going to take and cut 2 portions since I only have partial of this. So that they'll be, when I like overlap them, they'll be big enough here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take the star and I'm going to trace with a pencil the outline of the star and then cut out around it. So I'm actually going to line my seam up there at the bottom of the edge of the interfacing, and I'm just loosely, this is not exact, just kind of giving it a general outline. So it's kind of sloppy. And actually what I'm going to do is get 2 of these together. It's a lot easier if they're not quite so rolled. I'm going to cut just inside of these lines since I outlined it a little on the outside of the block. I'm going to cut inside it maybe 1/4 of an inch or so because I definitely don't want it going outside of my quilt. So keeping them both together. And nothing about this has to be really perfect. This is just helpful to kind of keep the quilt from moving around, the block from moving around too much as you're sewing it down. It's not meant to be like a permanent plan. But now you see you're going to have kind of what you need there. Okay? Okay, so now I've got my pressing mat and my iron ready. And I'm going to line these up. See, there's going to be plenty here that is not going to get in there. I'm going to actually see if that fills it a little bit more. It's getting a little close to the edge there. I just really don't want it to go outside of my star when I'm pressing it down. Okay, and I may actually go ahead and give that a press. And you want to try to get to the points. This is just a dry iron. And now for the other side. Okay. So if you are making this with a quilt block, you could pull your edges in 1/4 of an inch. I like to leave it. I like to do a zigzag on mine and leave it as it is. But if you were doing that, that could be the way that you could get those edges folded in. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is position this on my sweatshirt, and then I'll press it into place. Okay, I've got this sweatshirt from Rich or Poor that I found, and I really love like how soft and thick this sweatshirt is. And I actually can use this as kind of a guide for centering it and also getting it centered on this side. But you can also use like a ruler to make sure your block is level. And so if I measure from here down, it's about 3 inches. That looks about right. Over to the side point here. And that all looks pretty good to me. So now, one thing that you can do is use a Hera marker. These are just good for, whoop, whoop, whoop. These are good for marking without leaving lines. And you can kind of mark where your points are going to be. And that way, when I peel this off and when I press it down, I'm not having to remeasure. Okay, so at this point, you're going to peel off the paper, and it's leaving an adhesion on there. It's very lightweight, but it just kind of helps to keep it in place. And you want to be careful as you're peeling to not be peeling off the adhesion itself. Okay, so now I can use those lines again to kind of measure up. Make sure it's good and straight. And then I'm going to use my iron again to press this into place. And this just is going to help hold it instead of pinning. It gives it a little bit of a better adhesion to the sweatshirt, because I'm going to be turning it a lot of different ways as I zigzag it. Okay, so you can see the edges are kind of going to be pulling up because I didn't have it come to the edge, but it'll keep it in place. And now we're going to zigzag this down. And this whole time you just want to make sure you're not catching underneath your sweatshirt any other layers. Okay, so at this point, you technically could be done. You've gotten it sewn down, and I think the only thing that I would say at this point is just go back and trim any little threads. But this doesn't completely take care of the raw edges. It just minimizes them. So after a wash, you may need to trim a little bit. But what I like to do at this point is come in and add some hand quilting stitches, and I just use my big stitch hand quilting with something like a Sashiko thread or a pearl cotton number 8. My favorite thread is this DMC pearl cotton, and I really like the size number 8. It's a little bit of a thicker thread, and it tends to be what I use for hand quilting that I want to add some texture to, so I can show you how I do that. Okay, here are the tools I like for my hand quilting. This clover leather thimble, as you can see, mine's a size medium. My hands are a little bit bigger, but I like to wear it on my middle finger. I love these little snips, and I'm going to try these today. I tend to grab whatever needle I can find. As I'm getting older, I really like the golden eye. It feels like it's easier for me to see what I'm doing a little bit more. And I don't know, they all have different, well, they put a thread in there, that's great. This is the Leishan Sashiko needles. So I'll probably try one that's a little bit longer, but not the biggest for this. Okay. And I didn't do any special knot. I don't know. I was just tie a knot. Okay, the only thing I will say about this is you definitely don't want, if you've watched my hand quilting videos, this is not a project to try to pop the knot on. It's just because you fused it, it's really tricky to get it to work that way. I have found if I start in the center here, so if I start in the center and then outline each star, if I go like this, then I can run my thread here and do the same thing. Whereas if I start out here, I'm going to be starting and stopping each time. So I kind of start at the center, I don't know, maybe a quarter, eighth of an inch away. And I never use a hoop. It's about like a running stitch. This needle is a little thick, but it'll be okay. So this will give a little bit on the inside of like texture, but it's really not too much. Okay, I'm coming to the end here. And at this point, you just want to make sure you don't pull too tight when you go to knot, where it basically gathers those stitches. You want to make sure you're leaving it loose and flat and not pulled when you make your knot on the back. So I'm just going to pull there, up through the back. And I do it a couple times, I just don't pull it tight, the thread. And then cut. And now the next step feels like it should be done, but it actually looks best if you give it a wash first. So let's go do that. And fresh out of the wash. Soft, cozy, ready to wear.